Now we're going to do quadratic inequality. So the ones that we did before are all linear inequalities. And let's just get started. So x squared minus x minus 12 is less than 0. So this is quadratic because it's in the form ax squared plus bx plus c. So what we're going to do, first off, we're just going to work with the equation because that's what we know. Now, in order to do this, we're going to factor. So let's see, factors of negative 12 that add up to negative x. So negative 4 and positive 3. So now we set each part equal to 0. So x minus 4 equals 0, and then x plus 3 equals 0. And we get x equals 4 and x equals negative 3. So once we're there, we're not done yet because this is the solution of the equality, not the inequality that we were looking at. So we need to mark those. And then we need to see which region is our solution, right? Because it's an inequality, it's going to be a region instead of a set number. So let's try something here, and then we got to try something in here, and we got to try something in here. So these are going to be our test points, right? So you can plug in anything less than negative 3. And to make things a bit easier, I'm going to plug it into the factored form. So we have x minus 4, x plus 3, and that needs to be less than 0, right? Because I don't want to actually carry out the entire operation and take much time. I want to do it in the shortest time possible. So suppose we have a negative 4, okay? And without really doing the calculation, I just need to know if it's going to be less than 0 or not. So if I have a negative, negative minus a negative is going to be a negative, and then negative 4 plus 3 is still going to be a negative, right? So it's a negative times a negative, so overall it's going to be positive. So for this part, it's false, right? Or in other words, it's going to be positive because it's a negative times a negative. And then in the middle, I'm just going to plug in 0 because between negative 3 and 4, there is a 0. So for that case, if I plug in a 0, it's a negative for the first one times a positive for the second one. And so this part, it's a negative. And then finally, I'm going to plug in something greater than 4. Let's just say 5. So 5 minus 4 is a positive, and then 5 plus 3 is a positive. So overall, this part is going to be a positive, right? But we wanted things that are less than 0. So we're looking for the negative. So our solution is just this interval. So our solution is from negative 3 to 4. And that's it, because that's the only part that satisfies the inequality. So let's do another one. For this one, we'll do 2x squared plus 5x minus 12 is less or greater than or equal to 0. So now I'm just going to do the equality. So 2x squared plus 5x minus 12 is equal to 0. And you can use the AC method, but the only factors of 2 is 2 and 1. So 2x and x. And then, let's see, I want it to add up to be 5. So it's gonna be 2, 6 here, and 2, okay. Instead of trying to do it in my head, let's write it out. So 2x squared. So factors of negative 24 that add up to 5. So it'll be negative 3x plus 8x minus 12. So from the first one, if I factor out an x, I get 2x minus 3. And from the second one, I can factor out a 4, and I get 2x minus 3. So it's going to be 2x minus 3, and then x plus 4 is equal to 0. Right, just from here to here. So I have 2x minus 3 equals 0, and then x plus 4 equals 0. So my x equals negative 4, or my x equals positive 3 halves. So now, once again, we got to go through and test some points. So negative 4, positive 3 halves. And once again, I'm going to look at the factored form. So the factored form is 2x minus 3 times x plus 4. And I want this to be greater than or equal to 0. So let's just plug in some numbers. So if I do a negative, say 5, it's a negative minus, so this is going to be negative, and then it's going to be another negative, so this part it's going to have positive values. And then for the second part, I can plug in a 0. So if I plug in a 0, it's a negative times a positive, so it's a negative. And then if I plug in anything higher, I can plug in 10, right? So it's going to be a positive times a positive, so it's going to be a positive here. I want greater than or equal to 0. Because it has an equal to, I'm going to use brackets this time. And because I want the greater than, I want this part, because it's greater than 0. And then I also want this part, because it's greater than 0. So the solution for this one is going to be negative infinity to negative 4, including 4. Or it could also be part of 3 halves to infinity. Okay, and that's the solution for this second inequality.